Hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, oxygenaddict.com,
online triathlon training community,
wearebikehouse.co.uk
for all your cycling needs,
and triathlonbox.co.uk.
Don't faff in transition again.
Never faff in transition again. So Helen, it's been quite the racing weekend, hasn't it? It's been chock-a-block full of racing.
I know. Did you follow much of it?
I completely didn't know. It was sunny, it was hot, and I went away in my camper van and caught up with the results when I got home. There's no vicarious living for me this weekend. I was out in the sun. How about yourself?
I was following bits and bobs online whilst at work. So I did see a few things about, like, I know we're going to chat about Mallorca in a moment, where the weather looked absolutely minging, and I think the weather was far nicer in the UK than it was out there.
Yeah, it's something to do with that bonkers weather system that must have sucked all the hot, dry air that Spain usually gets and kind of spewed it out over Great Britain, because it was 25 degrees C here and about 11 down in Mallorca from what I saw, and absolutely bouncing down with rain. Did you see the pictures?
I saw some pictures of a very flooded transition area. It looked horrible.
It looked like Blackpool in the middle of April, didn't it?
I would have been a little bit gutted had I, booked it as a sure thing. It'll be sunny, and then rocked up and been like, oh no, it's actually better back in the UK. I had that once on a training camp in Mallorca. The weather was far nicer at home.
Oh, it breaks your heart, doesn't it? I had a couple of guys racing out there, and in fact one of them's a patron of the show, Ryan Gavin, bless him, and he came off on one of the descents.
Oh no.
And thought he'd broken his forearm, and I was looking at his file in Training Peaks, and there's like this, and I sort of thought, you hear that, don't you? I came off, I thought I'd broken my wrist, and you think, well, that's it, game over, race over. Got back on, he was off his bike for less than 20 seconds from what I can see from his power file.
Seriously, jumped
Rode
back on?
the whole rest of the way. Say again?
And just jumped back on?
Just literally jumped back on, rode the rest of the way with one arm on the aero bars, and snagged his slot to the 70.3 World Championships as well. So stellar performance, and you got to imagine how fast you'd go if you hadn't crashed on the descent.
My God. Have you been down that descent, which is on the 70.3 course in Mallorca?
Do you know, I never have. I've got to the top of it and then run out of time and had to turn around and come back the way I've come, which is up the climb that's in there. It's super, super twisty, isn't it? Yeah,
really, really twisty. I've done it in the dry, and I thought, oh my God, I'd hate to do this if it was really wet.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was absolute carnage out there. There was people all over the road and people losing back wheels and front wheels and sliding off, and yeah, absolutely beastly weather for them.
Oh, God.
So from what I can see, I think that the winners even were 10 minutes or so slower than last year, as probably largely as a function of not being able to rip it on the descents, I imagine.
Yeah.
It really will make that much of a difference when it is so wet. And I'm sitting here looking at the pictures on Slow Twitch. They've got these portable gazebos put up, and everybody's wearing the kind of plastic pack-a-mac you get from... Yeah, ponchos. Alton Towers ponchos.
When you've forgotten your cagoule, and it's the only option.
The things that they give out on the start of the log flume thing.
Yeah.
Oh man. So look, the big news there is Andreas Streitz won it again 3 years in a row. So that's a domination for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
10 minutes or so slower than last year. But yeah, it really looks like he took it to everybody. He had the fastest bike split, and then a really solid run with a sort of 1:16, I think he ran. Bart Aeronauts charged him down with a 1:14, but it wasn't quite enough. So we've ended up on the men's side. Andreas Streitz takes it out in 4:04. Bart Aeronauts, again with a super strong bike and run, comes through in 4:06.51. And Thomas Steger from Austria in third in 4:09. No Brits there in the top 10. But that's not the case over on the women's side. We had a win for Laura Philipp from Germany in 4:32, Nicola Spirig in 4:35 in second, and good old Emma Pallant in third place gets on the podium.
Yeah, I saw that. Really cool result for her, isn't it?
Yeah, really good. And it's a massive, massive race, 70.3 Mallorca, so that'll do her confidence at the 70.3 distance the whole world of good, won't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's brilliant to sort of see her on that podium after all the hard work and the good results that she's she's had over the past year.
Race best run for her, 1:19 half marathon.
Nice work, Emma Pallant.
Well, when you compare it to the men's race best run of just under 1:15, that's an astoundingly quick run, isn't it?
That's really good. But then, that is her background. Emma comes from a running background, and so to be able to pull it together off the bike is fantastic.
Yeah, she gets a few more years of long-distance biking in her legs, and she's going to be world champion. I'm telling you now.
Love it.
We also have
World Triathlon title, Rob.
Yeah, there we go. Just step it up. Come on, Emma. Step it up for us. Kate Coomber as well. She pulled off a 10th place overall with 4:56, so a really solid result for her as well. Yeah,
Kate Coomber, of course, got onto the podium at Ironman UK last year, one of the age groupers, didn't she?
She did.
We were there watching her cross the line.
Exactly. You were there, you pounced on her.
Third, I think she got, didn't she, at Ironman UK?
That's right, yeah, she was third, wasn't she?
So
yeah.
Brilliant. So she was racing, wasn't she, pro? I think Natalie Seymour was racing pro as well for the first time, I think. Former hockey player.
Yeah, well, it was a deep field because I've only got the top 10 results here. I know Stu Hayes was racing as well, so he must have been just outside the top 10, I guess.
Yeah, and Tim Don with a DNF, I think.
Again, it's down to the weather, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. So
I imagine it gets pretty heavy and wet and bogged down with all that body hair when it's wet. It must weigh him down.
And it's the fact that it's not like South America where he's just blitzing it, isn't he?
Yeah, he must love the heat and not so much racing in what can only be described as great British conditions down in Mallorca.
Nice.
Right, let's scoot over the pond then. It was the Ironman 70.3 North American Championships in Utah at St. George. And I don't know if you saw the results here, but over on the men's side, it's noticeable here, another win for Lionel Sanders, a friend of the show.
Yes, friend of the show.
5th win in a row for him after he won Ironman Arizona in November last year, and then this year he's taken out Panama 70.3, Oceanside 70.3 and Texas 70.3. So if I remember him saying at the end of the interview we did with him, he was stepping back from Ironman this year and looking to really put all his eggs into the 70.3 basket and wanted to be world champion. And really, you've got to say he's emerging as the early season favourite, isn't he, for that?
He's just. I saw some photos of it, Rob, and well, number one, it looks stunning. Number two, yeah, he is absolutely on top form, and you kind of hope and you wonder as well, because it's 70.3, because you can recover a little bit quicker from the races. Can he therefore maintain that form all the way through to September? Is he going to have a little bit of a rest, or quite what's going to happen? So it will be really interesting to watch what happens over the next few months with Lionel Sanders. But absolutely, he's the one to beat really at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah. Like you said, it's early days, but by chalking up 5 70.3 victories by mid-May, I mean, he can basically go away, take a mid-season break, and then crack back into the training again.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I'll email him, see what his plans are, and see if we can get a bit of gossip from him, because I think, like you said, we're into uncharted territory here. It used to be that people would have an early season thing and then go away and come back again, but maybe those times are changing. It looks like he can bounce back and bounce back and bounce back, and you think about what he was talking about in terms of the training that he does. Maybe the 70.3 races are actually easier than the training that he does, and he's doing this kind of thing week in and week out, and who knows, man?
Yeah, and the other thing is, Rob, psychologically, if you're on a start line next to him, he's already got 5 wins under his belt. He knows he's already got 5 wins under his belt. And I think that is massive too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at the times here, he was about, let's see, Sanders was 4 minutes 30 down out of the water, but only 2 minutes behind the group that had Sebastian Kienle, Tyler Butterfield, Trevor Wurtel, Ben Hoffman in.
Yep.
So he's definitely improved his swim to only be 2 minutes down on Seb Kienle's group. And again, if you extrapolate that out, if he could hold it to 4 minutes over the Ironman distance, that's a much, much smaller gap than we were talking about. It's the kind of difference that going back to the day Norman Stadler used to be about 4 minutes down, and within 40 or 50k he'd ridden back up to the group. So he really is.
To watch what's going to happen over the next few years with him.
I hope we can talk him into going back to Ironman racing, because it's maybe his plan is working out, that by stepping down the distance and he can really focus on a bit of short distance speed to lift his swim game back up, and then he can extend that back over the longer distance, then he really will be a force. So if you imagine he's only getting out of the water, say, 2 minutes down next season over an Ironman distance, then it really is game on for him, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be good. Keep up the good work, Lionel.
Yeah, so he absolutely drilled it on the bike, as you'd expect. And then he had the fastest run as well. So he backed up his race best ride with a 1:15 half marathon. So a 3:48 victory for him overall. So overall results for the men: Lionel Sanders in 3:48, Seb Kienle in 3:51, Joe Gambles in 3:53. And then women's race, again, another great success here for Heather Wurtell, because she's another one who's had, is this her third victory this year in 70.3s for her?
Yeah, I think it is, which is because she won in Monterey, didn't she? And then she backed it up in Oceanside? No?
Yep, that's right. So again, maybe the sharing transport, her and Lionel, because they're racing at the same races all the time, aren't they?
Her and Trevor and Lionel go together.
Yeah.
A road trip.
Road trip. And she's definitely emerging as the early season favourite for the World Championship, isn't she? With pretty much early season domination of all these races.
Yeah, sure. And she did not have the Kona that she wanted last year, did she? So, again, you kind of hope that one year it'll all fall into place, because she is just so awesome bike runner that, she's one to definitely be up there.
Yeah. I wonder if she's another one who's decided she's going to step back from Kona this year and just concentrate on the 70.3 World Championships.
Good question. I don't know.
Have to chase it down using your new American contact, see if we can get her on the show, Hells.
Hey, don't know, no promises.
All right, so overall ladies' results here then from 70.3 St. George. Heather Wurtell takes it out in 4:16 from Holly Lawrence of Great Britain in 4:18 and Meredith Kessler in 4:22. Laura Siddle's there down in 7th as well in 4:30, so she wasn't far off the pace.
No, I think her bike legs perhaps didn't show up on the day, but she finished ahead of Rinny, didn't she?
She did. She just snuck 3 minutes ahead of Rinny there.
Yeah, so brilliant. Fab. Good to see the results keep on coming. Nice. Well done, Laura.
Good stuff there. Okay, and something a bit closer to home for the UK listeners, really. It was I'm going to get the title. Was it the UK Olympic Distance Triathlon England Championship, wasn't it?
So, yes. Yeah, it was the England...
Triathlon England. It must be the English Championships over the Olympic distance.
That's the one.
Held at Grafenwater. Happy days, really. It looks like super fast course. The times are quite astounding, actually, especially on the bike. But again, with it being the British Championships, you get the rock stars showing up in every discipline. So I had a quick nosy through his results. Fastest swim of the day, Helen.
Yeah, go on. Oh, no, let me guess. Lucy Charles.
Oh, now then, that was going to be my guess as well, but believe it or not, somebody showed up and actually outswam her.
No.
So, Lucy Charles did take out the women's race, so she's the overall Triathlon England Olympic distance champion.
Brilliant.
I'll get the full results up here and we'll go through them. So, Lucy Charles takes it out in 2 hours flat and 7 seconds,
Brilliant.
Which puts her 2 clear minutes ahead of Alice Sharp from Manchester Tri Club and Emma Deary from Stortford Tri Club in 3rd in 2:06. But how about this for splits for you? Lucy Charles swam 18:05.
Shut up.
She biked 1:01:30. So her biking has seriously improved over the winter, hasn't it?
Wow. Well, I told you, like at Austria last year, this thing sort of flew past me, disc wheel and all. And I was like, oh my God, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, but her brake blocks weren't rubbing on the back wheel like yours were. Maybe she wouldn't have caught you, Helen, if we'd had if you would get your own special bike mechanic.
Well, I had a crazy head start on her as well. Anyway,
even so, I'm putting it down. I'm putting it down to the brake blocks, Hels.
Right.
So let that be a tip for all the listeners. If you've got those funky aerodynamic back brakes hidden away under your bottom bracket, just check the alignment beforehand.
Check them beforehand. So anyway, brilliant work from Lucy Charles on the bike. Yeah, what was her run?
Yeah, well done. And then she ran down a 38.30, so she's miles ahead. Who knows whether she's running within herself there. So congratulations, Lucy. That's a very, very good bike split in particular. So she's now
fantastic.
The real deal as a swim biker, isn't she?
Oh, absolutely. And you know she's racing pro now this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, took up her pro license. So, she's awesome.
I think she's going back to do Staffordshire, I think I remember reading. That's going to be her first 70.3 race. So it'll be interesting to see how her time's there compared to last year.
Yeah. It's exciting, Rob, isn't it? The season's properly underway.
Okay, in the men's race, we had Dan Jenkin had another great race here from redvenom.co.uk. He took it out in 1:50 and 45 seconds. For a non-drafting race, that's seriously toasty, isn't it?
Yeah.
21-minute swim, 54.30 on the bike, and 33.30 to back it up. So how's that for a bike-run combination?
Yeah,
that's chapeau, Dan. Good racing there and good promotion for redvenom.co.uk. Edward Castro was the man who outswam Lucy Charles.
Edward, what are you playing at?
17.48.
Oh my God.
How's that for a legit swim split? He rode 56 flat on the bike and then 37.54 on the run. So superb swim biking from him, from the Corley Cycles tri-team. And Oliver Milk from Red Venom again in third place with a 19-minute swim, 54.50 on the bike and 37-minute run to finish in 1:53. So fantastically fast racing there, isn't it?
Yeah, and it would have been such a stunning day as well. So they would have had really good conditions for it. So
yeah, wouldn't it just?
What a race.
Low wind, nice and warm. Yeah. And friend of the show, Alex Lawton there in fifth place.
Nice work, Alex. Good work.
1:54 flat, so that's great racing from him, isn't it?
Fantastic. Oh, I love it, Rob.
I'm going to give a shout out here, Hels. Down in which place here? 21st overall, and winning the male 50 category is a name I know from back in the day. Peter Younghusband was 15 years ago or so, was the guy who was winning the over 35s category.
Yeah.
When I first got into triathlon. So as an over 55, he's done 1:59 for an Olympic distance race.
So is he like the male Jill Fullen?
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. He's a superstar. 20-minute swim, 56-minute bike, and a 39-minute run. So that's and putting it in perspective, he's just a few places in front of Lucy Charles. So fair play, Peter. We should get him on the show. He'd be an interesting interview, wouldn't he? He's been in the sport forever.
God, wow, that's awesome. That's a great result
for sure. And there we go. That pretty much rounds up our results from this week, doesn't it?
I think it does, Rob. I think the race season is well and truly underway, and it's great. I just love it, and you sort of get excited about everything. I'm going to be racing this weekend. I think there's a sprint race, local one, so I'm going to be there doing that.
You're at Wilmslow, aren't you, this weekend?
Yeah, Wilmslow. So that'll be fun.
I'm looking forward to seeing how you go, Helen.
Oh, well, it's going to go one of two ways, Rob.
Victory. Stop being the bridesmaid. That's how it's got to go. Victory.
Oh, no. So last time I did it, my tri-suit was so baggy that the swim was just horrendous. And I was so slow and got lapped in the water that they had like lap counters. And the girl was showing me the float to sort of say, you can get out now. And I'm like, no, I can't. I've still got 2 laps left. So bad.
Bless.
It's not going to happen this weekend.
Do you know, I heard years ago that the opposite thing happened to Paul Hawkins at that race, that he was so fast, he overtook everybody in his lane, and when he went to get out, the lane counter said, no, you've got another 2 to do, and sent him back in, and he knew that he hadn't.
Nightmare. Yeah, this is... anyway, we will see what happens. It should be a good little spin out, I think.
And it looks like the weather's going to be good as well, so I hope that goes well for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. I've been out for a bit of a bike ride this morning and found a bit of mojo.
Oh.
So
Where
all good.
Where was it? Where was the mojo, Rob?
I found my mojo in Tatton Park this morning,
Nice.
so that's been where I'd left it.
I found mine out in the Peak on Saturday. Had a bit of a mammoth ride out there, but it was absolutely beautiful, and did a few hills, and I decided to ditch the gels, Rob. I went to rice cakes.
Oh, and how did that work out for you? That's interesting.
Well, difficult to eat on the go because the rice wasn't sticky enough, so I need to, work on the rice consistency. But in terms of something tasty and you're not feeling disgusting at the end of it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Honestly, absolutely brilliant. So it was
good
like
stuff, man.
sticky rice with a bit of scrambled egg and bacon. Not good for you if you're veggie at the moment. And yeah, and then you just sort of like press it down in a tin. It was really, really good. So I'm going to keep on working on that and see what happens. The other day
I think you're onto a winner there, because so many people, firstly, it'd be awesome to have real food that you could eat on a ride.
Yeah.
But you don't have that, I've just eaten 1,000 calories of sugar kind of feeling in your teeth when you get back. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Honestly, it was really, really tasty. So I'm going to keep on working on that.
You need something to wrap it in, Hells.
Yeah, I need to just make them a bit stickier, I think. Oh, raisins.
What do you store them in when you're riding?
Well, yeah. They had raisins in them as well, and cashew nuts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, regular little moving buffet. Well, we'll get that. I think we should get that perfected, and maybe the follow-up to Fueled by Cake should be real fuel for the bike. How about that?
Well, yeah, it wasn't. It's not my recipe at all. I cannot take any praise for that. It's not mine. It's from a book, I think, called Portable. I think it's like Portable.
Oh, Feed Zone's Portables.
That's it. It's one of those. Yep.
Great book. Yeah. Good one.
So,
you've inspired me. I'm going to try and do something like that and get something prepared myself.
Yeah, honestly, it takes a little bit of preparation, but my God, it was so much nicer thinking, I get a little bit of rice now rather than a, minging orange gel.
Hey, well, how about this? How about we throw this open to the Cup of Tri community and we say, if you are a bit talented in your kitchen department and you've come up with some things like this, or even if you've tried some recipes that you know work really well to make food you can take out, real food you can take out on the bike with you, drop us a line or email us, coachrobwilby@oxygenaddict.com, and we'll see if we can get a few recipes together and share them with the community. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Definitely, because I think people really like that kind of thing. And then, like little protein balls and all those kind of things. They're so easy to make, and it saves you a load of money, and they're actually blooming tasty.
And it's good for you. That's
exactly.
The thing. Take back your health and nutrition from the big companies, hey?
Yeah, totally.
The revolution starts here.
Your teeth are going to be saved.
Haha, great. All right, listen. I want you to give us an introduction to today's interview, please. Tell us what's going on, because I've pre-listened to this one and it's a stonker. You did a good job here, Helen. Pat on the back to you, mate.
Well, pat on the back to Mr. John McAvoy, who is our interview of the week this week. I'm not going to give too much away because I think I will let you, hear that in the actual interview. But essentially, John McAvoy has only recently turned to triathlon, and he's blooming good at it. And there's a huge reason as to why he could never do triathlon for pretty much most of his 20s, which will come out in the interview. The first triathlon he did was Ironman UK, and now he's got his sights set on the European Championships coming up in Frankfurt. But seriously, it's pretty inspiring and really quite interesting. So, Here we go. Here is this week's interview of the week with John McAvoy.
John McAvoy, hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast.
Hello, nice to speak to you, Helen.
Oh, thanks. Well, I just read about you and I thought, oh my goodness, you have quite an inspiring story, and I think it's one that a lot of people will find really interesting.
Yeah, I've had quite a unique sort of life, and it was quite it's been quite a journey to the point I'm at the moment. How I got into triathlon, so I originally started rowing on the water. My dream was to obviously get to the highest level I could in rowing. And anyway, I rowed on the water for 6 months, and I come to the realization rowing's kind of a similar sport to swimming in the context of you've really got to have done it from being quite a young kid to really get to that higher level in the sport. So after about 6 months of rowing, I kind of come to the realization that even though physically, like my physiology, my heart and lungs, I was putting out those sort of the same numbers that sort of guys that were breaking into the GB squad would be putting out on the rowing machine over 2,000 and 5,000 meters.
Yeah.
My technical ability was lacking massively, and I realised by the time I got that technical ability of being able to transfer that physiology onto the water, I'd have been in my like mid to late 30s. And in rowing terms, your class as a veteran at 26. So
it's ridiculous.
You basically, you kind of, if you're not within that system already, the boat sets out, and I know the pun, but you've kind of missed the boat and it's gone. So I kind of thought, what other sports could I do where I could use that sort of my body, my heart and lungs, and get the biggest reward from my fitness. And Ironman, and I don't want to jump really forward, but I saw Ironman a few years before that on the television on Trans World Sport.
Yep.
And obviously it was when I was in a certain situation, and it was always on my radar to do. So I thought to myself, do you know what? I love the sport of rowing, but I'm not going to be able to get to the level I want to get to because I've left it too late. So do you know what? I'm going to do I want to do an Ironman. It must have been May,
Yep.
end of May. So I was looking around and
And which year would this be? Like 2013?
2013 it was.
Yeah.
So it was May time. So then I thought Ironman was the only thing I wanted to do. So up until this point, I literally didn't own a bike. I couldn't swim.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to go out and buy a bike. I basically taught myself how to swim to like whatever sort of level I was at. I was awful at the beginning.
Were you breaststroking or front crawling at this stage?
I was front crawling. So basically I was watching videos on YouTube and I was going down to the Lido and the Serpentine. So I bought a wetsuit and I was basically just splashing about. And then it was like, what Ironman could I do? And I was restricted in my travelling. So I couldn't leave the United Kingdom because I wasn't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I looked and the only Ironman races I could do was Ironman UK or Ironman Wales. And because I was quite impatient, I thought, do you know what? I'll just do a UK. And I tried to enter it, but it was already sold out. So I thought, God, like, how can I do it? And I went through the website and then it came up that you could do a charity spot. So I entered through a charity spot and then I probably jumped the gun a bit. But then, like, obviously, I went and bought myself a bike off eBay and I paid about 600 quid for it. It was about 2 or 3 sizes too big for me. And up until this point, I was good. I'm not exaggerating with you. I'd never cycled past 60k ever.
Oh my goodness.
And so when I was talking to my friends and like people within rowing, that some of them already did Ironman, I was asking them for advice and I thought, like, what should I do? And they was just going, well, look, basically, I had 6 weeks before when I entered to actually doing it. So they said it's pointless you going out doing massively long rides now because you're just going to make yourself tired for the event and probably get injured. The swimming, so it was just the swimming. I was just trying to get like as good as I could possibly get in that short period of time, and I'd go swimming with a mate of mine, and it would help me a bit. I thought, do you know what? This might be a good idea to actually do one triathlon just to practice transition.
Yeah.
So I entered it. I when I look back now, and I entered the Eastern Dorney sprint triathlon, and so when I've got there, it was something. I think it was like a K swim. A K swim, 20k bike and 5k run. So when I started the K swim, it was the first time I'd ever done a proper sort of race.
Yeah.
So like when I started, I had like a bit of a mini panic attack, and I had to start doggy paddling because I wasn't used to people swimming around me and stuff. Like I've been in a Serpentine on my own, so I did this it was terrible. Like I did a K in like 26 minutes. It was really poor, And I got out and then I got on the bike. And then I thought I wasn't that bad on the bike, but again, it was only 20k, and I got off, and I think I ran a 19-minute 5k off the bike. And then anyway, so I did this practice, and I practiced the transitions and stuff. And about 3 weeks later, then I went up to Bolton for Ironman UK. I was sitting around the table with like these other guys, and there was an Irish guy next to me, and and obviously everyone's got these t-shirts on from all the other Ironman races they've done, and I'm talking to him, and he's gone to me, so like, what tries have you done leading up to this? And I went, oh, I've only done one. And he went, oh, like, what was it? Did you do any half Ironman? I said, like, no, like, I did like a sprint a couple of weeks ago. So he said, yeah, but what other triathlons? But no, I've never done one. This is it. This is the first time I've ever done triathlon, like properly. And he was like, and you could see in his face, he didn't want to like kind of say anything to me because he didn't want to worry me.
Yeah.
But I think he thought, like, what is this guy doing? Like, he's stupid. So then I never felt nervous at all.
Did
Like,
you just have it in your head that it's going to be a long day, but I know I'm going to get through it?
No, not at all. Like I thought to myself, like I was very confident, like I was fit from rowing. So I knew I was fit, and I knew I had the mental strength to get round the course. Like I knew I wouldn't give up or quit no matter how bad that it got. So I just thought to myself, do you know what? I can do this, and I didn't really get overwhelmed by it at all. Like the whole thing of Ironman.
Almost so naive going into it in a way, yeah.
And I had no anxiety. And like when I got there, I can remember like, so I'd done the bits and pieces. Like, I put the water bottles on the bike and stuff like that. That I already like thought this is what I'm going to put my energy drinks on and stuff. And then I stuck this wetsuit on, and then I was kind of like, even at that moment, I genuinely, because it was a mass swim start, and I know I had that mini sort of like panic attack, but even then, it just didn't really I didn't feel the anxiety. I just didn't feel anything. Like I got to the start line, and we swam out, and it was like a mass swim start at that time. So then like the gun went, and then I thought, oh shit, like this. Oh sorry, but I thought this is it. I started, and then I just like just swam, and I was breathing on every stroke. And again, my technical swimming was crap.
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I looked at like the clock, and I thought, I've just done that, and I did it in 1:07, and I was like, how on earth have I genuinely did not know how I swam that fast. And even to this day, like I've spoken to people before, and the only answers I've ever got is probably because I was so strong from rowing, like my back, and my technique. I was just basically pulling myself through the water with no technical finesse. And trust me, it would have just been like me, just literally pulling myself through the water. And I was gobsmacked. So then that kind of threw me a little bit. So then I got on my bike. When I got past 60k, everything was new to me. It was all new territory. And
Were you uncomfortable?
No, not really. Other than my bee sting in my eye, I just remember, because I always remember a tip someone gave me. He said, when you do an Ironman, and I look back on it now, and it probably weren't the best advice, but he just said it's like a buffet. He went, as long as you keep eating, as long as you keep putting fluid and food into your system, you'll be okay. And obviously I know kind of as my training's developed a bit further now, I kind of know that obviously that not necessarily is the best thing, but it was just, I just kept remembering just to keep eating on the bike. So but then I got off the bike, and I did the bike in 6.5 hours.
Wow. So
I got off that, and then I got my running trainers on, and then I just started running. And then I didn't really do it on pace. I just ran. I just remembered I just kept eating, taking on gels and stuff. And then I got to the end, and I did the marathon in 4 hours. And again, I was quite surprised. And yeah, when I got to the finish line, I was like, that wasn't that bad. And I ended up doing, I think I did 11 hours and 40 minutes.
For your second triathlon ever? Yeah,
my second triathlon. I did the sprint before, and then that. I would say out of all the races that I've done, that meant the most to me in the context of, because where I wanted to do it so bad, but I wanted to do it when I was obviously in the situation I was in the years before when I saw it on the television, that it kind of meant a lot to me. Like when I crossed the finish line, I thought, wow, like I'm actually doing something like I said I was going to do 4 years ago. Yeah. And it was a really sort of, and from there I got the bug. Like I absolutely loved it. And I realised it wasn't just like, when I was on the run and stuff, I was talking to other guys, and it's just like a very sort of unique sport where everyone's in that moment of suffering together.
How emotional were you when you crossed the line?
Yeah, quite. I was quite like, I wouldn't say I was like crying, but it like I could feel a lump in my throat, because, as I said, when I watched it on television all those years before, it kind of, when I was actually doing it, like, and when I finished it, it's because like I said to a lot of people years ago, when I broke a record on the rowing machine, one of the guys that officiated the record, we wrote a sort of blog afterwards, and this was in 2011. And I said then, when I was eventually would get out, that I would do an Ironman. I just didn't expect it to be as soon as it was, because I envisioned myself continuing to row, and then obviously take up maybe Ironman much further later on in my sort of sporting life.
So take us back to, you said when you got out, and you said you were in a very different situation. what was that different situation?
So, like, from the age of 22, I got sentenced to 2 life sentences in prison for conspiracy to commit armed robbery. And then I kind of, so even before that, like at school and stuff, like I had no real interest in sport at all at being at school. I was kind of like, I went to a very football dominated school, and if you wasn't good at football, you was just crap at the sport, and that was it. And you just accepted that. And I was one of these kids, like, I accepted it. I was like, we had like athletics, and I'd be the sort of kid that would do the 800 meters and pull up at 400 meters and pretend my hamstring was pulled, and cheat on the cross country. And I got caught on the cross country. I cheated. I caught the bus, and my PE teacher, Mr. George, used to drive the course in his car trying to catch people. And I was overweight. I hated PE. I wasn't, the only thing I did like about sport was watching football, and that was about it. And then I kind of like got involved in crime when I left school.
So what, 16 or 18 or before that?
I left school when I was 16. I went to prison when I was 18. I went to prison for possession of a firearm, and then I come out of prison when I was 20. And then in that period of time when I was 20, I was just completely like, I was going out, I was partying. I had no real interest in the gym. I'd go a couple of times a week if I was lucky. I did no sort of cardio training at all, no running, no nothing. And then I ended up getting caught at 22 years old. I ended up getting arrested for conspiracy to commit robbery. And then I ended up getting those 2 life sentences, and I was kept in a special unit in Belmarsh prison. And basically, when you're in that situation, you tend to find people that are in them situations go down 2 different sorts of roads, and there's not many roads to go down. So you tend to find when people are stuck in prison, they end up going down the drugs road, where they start taking drugs for escapism, or people really throw themselves into education, or art, and in my case, mine was training. And what I found was, like, I started off, and as I said, I went there from not really doing any sort of activity at all. So when I was in prison, I'd be locked up for 23 hours a day in a cell in this special unit in Belmarsh prison. And where I didn't have no access to the gym really, so I used to basically do cell circuits. So I'd put a chair at the end of my cell, and I'll do like thousands of step ups. I'll do 1,000 burpees, 1,000 sit ups, 1,000 squats, and I'll do this every single day.
And what made you think that, that's how I'm going to pass some of my time?
Because at the beginning it killed time, and what I noticed when I started doing it, it was like my brain completely shut off from my surroundings. So when I got on the exercise yard, there was only me and 7 other guys, and a couple of them were quite like a little bit older than me, and we just used to run around the yard and kind of, it would transcend me out of prison. Like, mentally, it would take me out of that environment. And I noticed when I did it, it completely, for that period of 90 minutes or 2 hours a day, I was completely out of that sort of draconian surveillance sort of environment. I didn't think of it, like, it really transcended me out of there. And as the sort of years passed on, I kind of just generally got fitter and fitter and fitter. And I didn't really realise how fit I actually was. Like, because you have no comparison when you're in there. And then I got transferred out this unit in Belmarsh, and I got sentenced, and I got the life sentences that I got, and I got transferred to a maximum security prison in Yorkshire called Full Sutton. And then when I went there, there was a prison officer in there called Mark Elliott. And Mark Elliott was basically, he used to do these fitness competitions. I can't remember the name, but there was a fitness competition, and I think you've had Hugh Davies on here before.
Yeah.
So he used to do those circuits with Mark Elliott. So this is how all these things work out. It's crazy. But so Mark Elliott at Christmas used to run the same circuits that he used to do outside these professional circuit competitions, and he used to run them within prison. So every Christmas they used to have a strongman competition, and his circuit competition. The circuit competition was called Superstars. So I come out of this special unit in Belmarsh, and I've got transferred to Full Sutton, and I signed up to do this circuit at Christmas. It was quite like, within prison, it's quite a prestigious thing. Like, everyone wants to be the fittest man, everyone wants to be the strongest man. So I signed up for both competitions because I thought to myself, it gets me out my cell and it gets me extra gym sessions, and you're down the gym all day, and everyone always wants to be down the gym all day that likes fitness, and it's the only way you'd be able to get down there. So on the first day, I did the circuit competition, and I absolutely just blew everyone out of the water. And I was more concerned about, like, the quality, the winning the tab of Quality Street at the end, than I was about actually beating one, because they give you these boxes of chocolates. So I won this, and then I thought, right, the next day, obviously, I'm gonna come back down, and I'm gonna do the strongman competition. Now, bearing in mind, like you can imagine, when you're in them sort of prisons, the people in there, lots of guys are probably never gonna get out, and like they are massively into weight training. So like these guys are massive, and I was only like 74 kilo, 75 kilo, and I did lift weights, but nowhere near to level. And then when I did the strongman competition the next day, like for my power to weight, I was like the third strongest in the whole prison. And these other guys that beat me were absolutely humongous. And then, but again, I didn't really have any conception of athletic ability because it didn't enter my thought process. Like I didn't know, I couldn't tell you who the Ironman World Champion was. I didn't know who Lance Armstrong was. I didn't know, I had no sort of fascination at all about any sort of sport other than football. I didn't care about it, and it never really entered my psyche. So I had nothing to really gauge where I was at or anything like that. And then another year passed, again, done the competitions. And then obviously I started getting a bit of notoriety within prison to being this very fit guy.
So would this be like 2008, 9 or something?
This was about 2008 it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically I was progressing through my prison sentence. And then I got transferred out of a maximum security prison because I'd done minimum tarified to serve. And that they have to allow you to progress to obviously eventually get released. So then they transferred me to a Category B prison. Now, again, I was only really training at this time just for a form of escapism to take me out of prison. Like I wasn't doing it with any intentions to be an athlete. I genuinely wasn't.
Mm-hmm. But in the Category B prison, would they allow you more time in the gym?
Yeah. So when I got transferred there, in comparison to being in this maximum security prison all these years, this place was just like it was mind blowing when I went there. Like I wasn't used to such like lack of security than what this other place was like with CCTV cameras and everything everywhere. And then I turned up there, and I went down to the gym one day, and I had my gym induction in prison because you always have to have your gym induction before they start letting you go. And again, you only then still get 3 sessions a week max, so you're still not really getting a mass amount of gym. And when I was down there was a guy on the rowing machine in the cardio, because normally it's gym split into weight section and cardio.
Yep.
And he was doing he was on the rowing machine, and I noticed every time I went down, he was always down there. So I went up to him one day and I said to him, "I'm like, what are you doing?" And he went, "Well, because you get loads of gym." And he said, "Oh, I'm doing this 1,000,000 meters for charity on the rowing machine." I went, "Oh, are you?" I went, "So what did you do?" And he went, "I spoke to the prison, the prison PT officer, the head of it, and he gave me permission. And he said, if I could come down here because I'm doing it for charity." So I said, all right. So I went to the prison PT officer and I said, "Look, if I do what he's doing, can I come down there and like get a special note and come down the gym every day and round the road?" Of course you can. As long as you raise some money, you can do it. So I basically started raising money for the Rainbow Children's Hospice. So I went back to the wing, and there's guys on the wing, and everyone was sponsoring me like £1.50, and I ended up getting like 300 or 400 quid. So I started this 1,000,000 meters, and then I've always had quite a bit obsessive tendency. So I did the first 1,000,000 meters in a month. So I worked out if I was doing like 32,000 meters a day, and I was doing 20 miles a day on the rowing machine.
So how long would that be taking you?
It would take to do the 20 miles.
Yeah.
It would probably just over 2 hours.
Okay, so like 2 hours a day on the machine.
Yeah, and I'll do that, and then some days I would do a little bit more, some days I'll do a little bit less. But I was always trying to average to get 1,000,000 meters per month. So then I basically, once the month was up, obviously it just flew by, and I thought, I'm loving this because it was just getting me off the wing, it was getting me down the gym. And then I said to the gym officer, "Can I do another 1,000,000?" And he said, "Yeah." And I did that in the next month, and then I did another 1,000,000. And then someone told me, I didn't even know this, but someone said to me, "If you row 5,000,000 meters, you've rowed across the Atlantic in the distance of rowing on a rowing machine." So I was like, "Yeah, do you know what?" So I went back to the prison officer. I went, "Look, I'll tell you what, can I carry on raising money?" He went, "Yeah, of course. If you do it, you can have more. You keep coming down." So I went, "All right." So as this was happening, my one of my best friends passed away in Holland in a car crash, and it kind of it massively hit me. Like it was the first time ever in my life like I looked around at where I was and what I'd done with my life, and I thought, I've actually done absolutely nothing. I've achieved nothing. Like all I had to show for all the years that I've lost was having some nice cars, nice watches, and like just material goods. I thought, I've not actually done anything with my life. I've achieved nothing. And I obviously kept relating because my friend passed away committing a robbery. Like if I wasn't in prison, I would have probably been with him, and he left no children behind, and he did nothing. And it massively hit me. And then the weeks after, I was really sort of like, I want to do something different with my life. Like and that, being in that situation, being in there, it opened up my eyes massively to wow, I'd wasted nearly up to that point. I was getting not far off doing 8 years, and I thought I'd wasted all my 20s in prison, and then kind of by chance, as I was going through this moment of like, what can I do with my life? And I was at a bit of a loss, to be honest. And then one day I was on this rowing machine, and it was kind of then the rowing machine basically then it took me away from prison in the context of I just didn't want to talk to anyone in prison anymore, because I just thought I didn't want to be around any of them people. I didn't want to sit there talking about crime. I was sick to death of listening to all the gossip in prison.
And up until that point, John, like up until the death of your friend, had you sort of thought, you know, I'm going to serve my time, I'm going to go back into crime?
Yes, 100%. Like I up until that point, I'll be brutally honest with you, I absolutely like from quite a young adult, it's very hard to explain to people. But when I grew up from being quite a kid, I grew up in quite a big criminal family, and sort of like the system and the state and authority was always kind of like I was always taught never to talk to policemen, and even when I was in prison, I felt then like the authority was just something. It was just, do you know what I mean, like rules and regulations. But when you're in prison, you've actually got a prison officer locking you in a door, like locking you behind the door, and it's very sort of in your face. And obviously you're seeing the system, and I had a tremendous amount of resentment, because I thought you've taken, and don't get me wrong, like I want to get this across that I take full responsibility for everything I've ever done, and obviously being the person I am today, and I look back on it, I have a tremendous amount of regrets, the things I've done, and the amount of life I've wasted through chasing money and all those sorts of things. But then in that moment in time, like I had such a resentment and hatred towards the system, and I felt that they had robbed me of my youth. And it makes you even more, it made me so resentful. It's like you're thinking, I used to think in my head, like, you just want revenge. I thought, when I get out, I'm just going to get revenge for all the years that you've taken away from me, and you're just making me worse. But I'm looking at that now, talking to you over here, and how pathetic it was thinking like that. But that was the mindset I had back then. And when my friend passed away, it really made me have a reflection about my life and about me as a person and what I'd done and all the damage I'd inflicted on my family and everything. And it really everything just hit me. And I just did not want to associate with criminals. I didn't want to talk about crap that they was talking about. And then, as I said, I was in and then what happened, the rowing machine and training then took on a sort of different meaning, because it was an escapism from them. Where before it was escapism to get me out of prison, now it become an escapism from having to talk about the mundane crap that people in prison talk about. I wasn't interested in it anymore. So I'd go down the gym, and then I'd carried on with this rowing, and one day a prison officer by the name of Darren Davis was in the cardio room, and I just finished a 10,000 meter row, and he was standing behind me when I finished, and my monitor was still live, and he was looking at the monitor. And he went to me, he went like, Johnny, that is really quick. And I went, no, I went, not really. And he went, no, Ron, seriously. He went, that is really, really fast. And he asked me how much I weighed. And then that was it. He didn't say much else. He just said, just really quick. And then a couple of days later, I was back in the gym, and he come up to me and he handed me loads of sheets of paper. They was A4 paper printouts. And he was showing me all the Concept 2 British records. And he went to me, look at some of them. And I looked at them and I went, I can nearly beat some of them now. And I could actually beat some of them within that point. And he went, okay. And I went, and then it kind of really got me thinking. I was like, I might do something. So as the weeks went past, I asked him, I said, look, would it be possible? Could I do some of these records from in here? So he got in contact with Concept 2, and he said, look, this guy, John, he's in prison. I'm a prison officer. Would it be possible if he could try to attempt some of the records in your record books? And they was basically like, look, you're a prison officer, he's a prisoner. You're not going to lie for him. So we'd be able to validate those records as being genuine. You just have to take his weight and have another independent verifying witness to say that he's done it. And then within the space of about probably 6 months, I'd nearly broken every British record on a rowing machine, from 10k upwards. And then I looked and it really become like, I really realised that I was actually good at something in life. Like I realised like I've actually got the ability to do something with my life. Like I can use this as a vehicle to turn my life around, and it opened up my eyes. And then we looked at some of the world records, and I really wanted to try to row the most amount of distance in 24 hours on a rowing machine. And again, like this was all completely new. I've never done any ultra endurance events in my life. I didn't know anything about endurance, about nutrition. And also like being in prison, I didn't really have access to sports nutrition.
Yeah.
So Darren went away to the prison governor and he said, could John McAvoy basically try to attempt his record? And where I'd done all the shorter records, the governor basically just said, look, he can do it, but we're not going to pay you overtime. So he come in on his day off and he sat with me for basically 24 hours, and he was only meant to sit with me in the early hours in the morning, just to basically wait till the day staff come in to sit with me throughout the daytime period of the record. But then obviously once we started, he wanted to be there for all of it, and he worked out the calculations of what I need to do to beat this world record. And obviously, like, this was all new to me. Like, again, I've never been up for 24 hours. Like, I've been up for 24 hours partying, but I've never been up for 24 hours doing exercise. So I wasn't allowed, like, obviously being in prison, you can't have sports nutrition drinks. So at this point, when I started breaking these records, I started becoming a little bit more aware of sports nutrition, and I started going down to the library and I started getting books about training and about sports nutrition. I realised like taking on fast releasing carbs. So I would make up my own sort of energy drinks with just granulated sugar.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, we read these things like you'd put salt inside the bottles. I used to buy bottles of Ribena. I'd drink the Ribena and then also use the empty bottle and put water and sugar and salt in and use as them energy drinks. And I got a couple of my mates to help me buy, because you're only limited to spend a certain amount of money per week on food, like the canteen in prison. So I got each of my mates to go and buy me 5 Snicker bars each and Mars bars. So we started this record, and now I've got these Mars bars and Snicker bars. We got these homemade like crappy sports drinks, and then we started this record. And I started at 4:00 in the afternoon, and then when I got round to like the early hours in the morning, I was really suffering, like, because I was already in front of the world record, like in distance terms, but like I wasn't used to. Again, this was a whole new experience to me. And Darren's done a lot of polar exploring. He's been to Mount Everest, South Pole and stuff, so he was very aware of like how your body adapts to being up for long periods of time. And he said to me, because I started thinking, I bit off more than I can chew here, but I had such determination to break that record. I thought, do you know what? No matter how bad this gets, I'm going to do it. And then I kind of really went within myself, and he was talking to me, and I said, look, Darren, I just can't talk to you. Like, I'm in a bad place. And he said, look, John, trust me, within like 6-7 o'clock, when your body cycle, because you're normally used to being asleep now, it's like, and deep sleep within like 2 o'clock in the morning. He went, when you get to 6-7 o'clock, he went, you will wake up, your body clock will kick back in, you will feel fine. He went, I promise you. So then, like he said, it got to like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I just felt absolutely brilliant again. Like, I didn't feel any sort of real fatigue or anything. And when I got to 2 o'clock in the morning, I broke the world record, and I still had 2 hours of rowing. He just said, you've just got to put as much distance as you can into the old record. And I ended up breaking that world record by like 21,000 meters.
Wow.
And then when I finished, I think the thing that he said, and it sticks with me to this day, that when obviously at the end, a lot of the prison officers was there, and a few prisoners come that were my friends in prison, like they come in and everyone was clapping and stuff. And then they all kind of left, and Darren went, I'll take John back onto the wing. And I was laying on this blue gym mat, and I was honestly, Helen, I was absolutely wrecked. Like, I'd never pushed my body so hard for so long. Like, I rode 263,000 meters in 24 hours, and I was wrecked. Like,
that's insane.
Honestly, it was the hardest mentally and physically I'd ever pushed myself. And I remember I was laying on this blue gym mat, and he was standing next to me, and he was just chatting, and he said, and even to today, it's such a massive, powerful thing that he said. He went, you've got a gift, John. And he went, it isn't just your physical ability, and your mental ability to be able to suffer. And he went, if you come out of prison and I reoffended and I went back into prison, he went, it'd be the biggest travesty I've ever seen as a prison officer. He went, because you would waste a massive gift. And even to today, that really massively resonated with me. And I consciously, even to today, I always think about what he said about wasting a gift. Like, if you've got that potential to do something, if I didn't do anything with it, it would be a massive waste. And he was such an important part of my life then, and even to today. Like, me and him are really good friends to today. And he's just an incredible man. And like, when I was in there, like, I used to enjoy going down to the gym and just talking to him, because he started really educating me on. Like, he brought me in books about Lance Armstrong, and I didn't really know Lance Armstrong was until I was in prison. And he'd bring me in books about polar exploring, about James Cracknell, about rowing, about real, just like, he's such an incredible man. And I just used to enjoy going down to the gym some days, and just because I got a job then as a gym orderly, and just sitting there talking to him for 3 or 4 hours a day about endurance sport. And that's when like we would talk about Ironman, and yeah, he was just such an incredible man.
And do you think after that time when he said, you know, if you reoffend after this, you know, that will be such a waste, is that when you thought properly? I know you'd said about the death of your friend as well, but did that kind of hammer it home, like, you know, I have to get out of here, I want to do something with my life?
Yeah, massively. Because do you know what, Helen? It become, as much as it was a positive, because after that I went on and I broke 2 more world records in there. But when that happening, obviously you get to a point like I broke all the records I could break, and I was still serving the prison sentence. And I've tried to explain this to people before. It's kind of, when you really, it'd be like being a drug addict and being locked in a crack den, but you're trying to you're trying to become clean, but you're still around people that are drug addicts. And I was kind of, I knew at that moment that I could use sport and my body as a vehicle to break me out of that environment and about the sort of negative, self-destructive life that I was leading up to that point. And I so badly wanted to get out. And then what ended up happening, it became frustrating that I knew I had the potential to do something, but I wasn't being able to use it. And honestly, like, and I know people within prison, like the people that obviously make decisions whether to let you out or not, like the judges and the prison staff, like they hear it every day. But I had genuinely changed. Like, it was 100% genuine. I wasn't making this up. Like I knew, like, my life, I was going to take it down a different road. And I knew if they let me out of prison that day, and I still had 2.5, 3 years left to serve, that I would never have gone back to prison again. That I would never commit a crime. And I knew I could use sport as that vehicle to help me do that. And I had and doing all those records give me the confidence, but it becomes so frustrating when I was in that place that I couldn't really do anything with it. And I was stuck there, and I wanted to compete against people outside of prison. Like, that's what I wanted to do. Like, I thought, I've got this gift and I'm not being able to use it.
How did you cope with the last, so you had 2.5 years left?
Yeah, I still had, well, again, because I was doing a life sentence, nothing was guaranteed. I still, like, again, you have to go through the process of trying to get released. And I had one parole hearing, and then I knew they wasn't going to release me because it's very unlikely you'll ever get released on your first parole hearing. But what they did do, they transferred me, or they recommended I be transferred to open prison. Yeah. So I got moved to an open prison where, like, basically you go out, but it basically works on trust. So, like, if I wanted to run off, I could run off. Like, when I was getting transferred there, they said to me, when I was getting actually moved from the prison I was in to that prison, when I was in the car with 3 prison officers, they was basically saying, if you run off, can you just make sure you leave your door key? Because they don't class them as cells, they class them as a door key. Can you just leave the door key in the latch? Because it causes so much aggravation to get new keys cut. So, like, it really works on a trust element of, like, you can run off if you want to, but obviously if you run off, you're wanted. So I was there, I got transferred there, and then again I got a job in the gym working there, and it was a little bit better. And then, like, there was a prison officer there by the name of Mark Sheriff, and he did, like, marathon running and stuff. And again, at this point, I really, like, I was avidly, I love watching the Tour de France. I was reading every book I could get on endurance athletes, and so I'd enjoy going to the gym talking to him about marathon running and on all those sorts of things. He was really interested in endurance sport. And then he got me a job working in Fitness First as a gym instructor, because at this point as well, I'd done all my
fitness instructor course and stuff.
Yeah, like I wanted to be a personal trainer. Like, I thought, like, I can try to make a career out of this. So he got me allocated to doing this job in Fitness First, and then I was going there every day, and I was kind of like, it was, and again, I feel a bit embarrassed saying this now, but it was the first job I'd ever had in my life, and I was like 29 years old. Like, it was the first sort of being in a structured sort of, when I say job, it was the first time I'd been in a structured environment of an actual, like, being told what to do by a boss. So this was all new to me. Like, I wasn't used to it, and I wasn't really used to interacting with members of the public and stuff. But I found I was quite natural at it. So obviously you might be able to tell, I don't, when I start talking, I don't shut up. So they kind of got me to start doing the circuit classes, and I thought, oh, this is all right. So I started doing that. I enjoyed it. And then again, I don't know if it's luck, but I was on a rowing machine in the gym, and they used to let me train. Like, they used to say, look, as long as you don't take the mitt, you can have some training sessions in the day. You can have, like, on your lunch, you can go and train for like an hour and a half. So I was, again, I was still using the rowing machine every day. And then I was on the rowing machine one day, and there was a girl next to me, and she was a big girl, she was solid. And then when I finished, she said to me, like, she looked across, she went, do you run the water? And I said, like, no. And then she was kind of like, that's really fast for, like, someone, you know, how big you are. Like, you're not even really that big. And I was talking to her, what do you do? And she said, oh, I'm a water rower. So I said, all right. And then I started talking to her about what she was doing, and she was explaining she was in the high performance women's centre at Nottingham.
Yep.
And basically they said they're a feeder into the GB setup. So the women go there, and then they go to trials, and then they get into the GB squad. So because she lived in Burton, she couldn't really afford the petrol money every day to travel from Burton to Nottingham. Her coach said, look, you can do all your land training next to where you live, and that was her local gym. But then on the weekends, you got to come up and do your water training in Nottingham. So she agreed to it. So I was told when I got the job there, I wasn't allowed to tell anyone that I was in prison. Because they didn't want people to know that they was employing people in prisons to work in their gyms. So me and her built up a relationship, and she was kind of saying, look, do you mind if I train next to you? And it was the first time, because she was normally used to just beating everyone she went up against on a rowing machine, because she was an absolute animal on a rowing machine. But then when she was rowing next to me, she was getting beat. So she wasn't used to this. And then we would do stuff like, we'd do half hour on the rowing machine, and I'd give her a 500 metre head start on me. Or we'd do 2,000 metre test, and I'd give her like a 15 second, she could be 15 seconds slower than me. And when that happening, she ended up getting so much quicker by training next to someone that was beating her, that she was so competitive that she was going back doing all her tests and stuff at Nottingham, and she was breaking all of her PBs. So her coach was like, what are you doing? She went, I'm training with this guy, John. And then as time elapsed, I kind of let my guard down with her, and I told her, I said, look, because she was inquisitive. She went, why are you up here? Why you're from London? Why are you in this little village in Burton? And I just said to her, and I was fobbing her off. And then I told her, I said, look, I'm in prison. And she didn't believe me. She went away and she went and Googled it. She came in the next day and she went, I cannot believe it. She went, I cannot believe it. She went, like, you seem so normal. I mean, what do you expect me to be like? And then, like, she really sort of, from that moment, like, she started teaching me how rowers row on a rowing machine. The actual set workouts that rowers do on rowing machines. They don't just get on it and sit on it for 20 minutes. There's actually a structure, so rates and stuff that they do.
Yeah.
She started teaching me about how rowers train functionally, so like lifting weights instead of me weightlifting, me actually lifting weights functionally for the sport of rowing. And then on a Sunday, I used to be allowed to go out to go home, but because I was so far up north, I couldn't get down to London because I didn't have enough time. Because I'd be let out from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, and that whole day was my own. So what I used to do when I used to come back from the gym on the Saturday when I used to work, I used to hide stuff in a bag down near the bus stop outside the gym. So when I used to get out Sunday morning, I used to go out like in my normal clothes, like I was having a family visit. But I used to go down to the rowing club where she learnt to row as a kid, and she would take me out in a single scull and coach me from the riverbank. Wow. And she started teaching me how to row on the water. And then she got in contact when I was getting nearer to release. She basically got me into the rowing club that I ended up joining in London, which was a high performance centre for lightweight men. Because she said, like, for someone your size, that's the best place you can go. And she was sending the head coach there emails, pretending he was me, saying that I was working up north and I was going to relocate back down to London, and I wanted to start rowing for London Rowing Club.
Wow. So in all this journey, there are sort of these key people along the way who have been such a massive influence on, the way that your life is turning out now.
Oh, massive. Obviously, I was very sort of focused, and I was very sort of driven, that I knew that I wanted to change. But then I don't know whether you can say in life that, and I do believe this, that I think you attract what you put out. And I think when people see that you want to get on, and people see that in you, you attract positive people into your life. And I do genuinely believe that. And I feel like I attracted people into my life, it's been incredible how touching people have been to really helping me get to the place where I'm at currently today. Again, I know some of it you could say it's luck, but I don't know whether. Again, you have to put yourself in the mix, don't you? You have to be there, and you have to be doing the stuff for people to sit there and think, oh, do you know what? I'll give that guy a shot. I'll give that guy a chance. But yeah, without the people I have had in my life since I've been released, and I cut all the sort of negative people out of my life from years ago, my life's just completely improved, and I'm in such a better place than I've ever been since I was a kid, basically.
Do you ever wish that sort of life had been different?
Yeah. Massively. Again, and I'm so passionate now about helping kids get involved in sport, because I think, I got on a rowing machine when I was 27 years old, and within that period of that time, like just to give you an indication, like a guy trying to get into the Great Britain rowing team has to pull a minimum of 6:33, so 6 minutes 33 seconds for 2,000 meters, and I could pull 6 minutes 21 fairly easy. Like it really wasn't that hard, and it wasn't really trained. So I was well within the cutoffs to do that, and I don't think necessarily that I'm more gifted than anyone. I think there's so many young children, so many young adults out there that can do unbelievable things and incredible go on in their lives, but they go down the wrong path because they look up to the wrong role models, and they think they do what I did, and they look up to these people and they aspire to be like people like that. They think they're going to get admiration and respect that they assume that these people have got, but they spend their whole lives in prison, and these kids end up spending their whole lives in prison as well. And yeah, if I could, if I could gone back and obviously done things differently, but again, I might not be the person that I am today, and obviously life experiences have got me to the point I'm at today. But yeah, like if I could go back, like if someone, my PE teacher would have noticed if I would put a bit of effort in and thought, do you know what, you're really good. What could I have gone on to do as within rowing or within any sport? But I missed that. But that's why I'm so passionate now about really trying to, with kids, like trying to help kids, like say there's other options. They don't have to go down that road. And because a lot of kids that go down them roads, because in life they just want respect and admiration, and they just think doing that is the way to do it, through committing crime, and it's not. It's just such a self-destructive waste of life.
Do you think some of the traits that you would have demonstrated, when you were committing crime, it sounds like a really, really weird question, but do you think they are similar to helping you get through an Ironman?
I think with everything I don't know, I think with my own set of circumstances, I draw on when I was in prison. So I use that as a massive motivational tool, like now, to drive me forward. Again, like I think being in prison gives you a massively high boredom threshold. So like I don't get bored going out on my bike for 5 or 6 hours on my own. Like that doesn't. I could do that every day and I wouldn't get bored. Because again, it's like with the situation when I was in prison, having all my freedom and everything taken off me. So if I go out and ride my bike in the rain, it doesn't really bother me, because I would have pleaded with you for that years ago. Like if you had said to me, "Do you want to go outside and cycle or go running?" I would have bit your arm off to do it. But I do think, yeah, like I think my situation from being in there, I do draw on when I was in there as motivation. So when I'm really suffering or really hurting in training or in a race, the second half of an Ironman marathon, for instance, I would draw on, like, no matter how bad this is, nothing is worse than being locked in that unit in Belmarsh for 2 years and being locked up for 23 hours a day with the boredom. Like nothing is worse than that. Like this race is going to last 9 hours. I suffer on the run for 3 hours. Like I put things into perspective, and I think probably like as well. It's made me, like when I did my first Ironman, I put that kind of the situation that I've been in my life, putting the actual race into perspective. Like, is it really a big deal? It lasts for 9, 10, 11 hours, 12 hours, but there's an end to it. Like years ago, there was no end to it. If you understand what I mean, like I was trapped. Like I couldn't decide. I just want to get out of here tomorrow. I was trapped. Like it was frustrating, and then basically someone said to me once when I was in prison, when you come to prison, you don't live anymore. You just exist. You don't live as a person. You just wish your life away. And I feel like that, being in that environment for that many years, for that mindset, when you do something like an Ironman, it just puts it all into perspective of really, it's kind of really not a big deal. And I think that's probably when I've done my first one, that was sort of the mentality I went in with. I thought, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, I can't finish the bike. I'll get off. Like, I knew I wouldn't give up, but it's going to hurt me a bit. But so what? It's going to be ended in 16 hours maximum. So yeah, I kind of just draw on past experiences and use that as motivation today, and it fuels me, and it fuels me every day, and also I think it gives me the motivation to keep improving all the time as well. Like I'm so determined to like achieve something with my life. I'm so determined. I want to achieve something, because I feel like I lost so many years of my life doing nothing. Like I didn't do nothing. I didn't achieve really. I did those records within the tail end of a sentence. But then when I was 18 years old and I come out and I was 20, and then I went back in, I wasted all my 20s was gone. And I was I'm so focused and so determined that I want to achieve stuff, and I want to be successful, because I felt like I was a loser for so many years of my life.
So what are your goals in triathlon then for this season?
Well, I'm doing Ironman Frankfurt in July. I'm doing Staffordshire before that, and then but Staffordshire is basically just going to be a bit of a tune-up race for Ironman Frankfurt. And Ironman Frankfurt, I'll be honest with you, and it's not arrogance. Like, my intentions that day are try to get a podium, and I will try, and I will give everything I've got. And when I get to the last half of that marathon, if I'm within touching distance of a podium, or I could hold position and get a Kona slot, I'll take the chance and go for the podium. Like, if that's on, and I'll switch my Garmin off and just run it, and race the race. And it's not being arrogant, but to me, like, that is what motivates me every single day. And I'm sort of that is my focus, and that's what gives me the fuel to get up and to train. Like, I want to try to be as good as I can be, and I think I'm good enough to get on the podium out there. I don't want to come across as being arrogant, but I just know within myself, I know I can do it, and that really motivates me every single day. Because, and also, Kona to me, as much as I would love to go out there and race, I've also got to be a little bit realistic about it. My previous convictions of me getting a US visa are very remote. So, and being realistic, I'll probably never be able to go out there as much as I would want to. So it's Ironman Frankfurt, for instance, the European Championships. That's the reason why I've decided to do that race, because it was the first time properly I'd been allowed to travel outside. It's the first Ironman I've ever done abroad, because I have to ask probation to be able to travel abroad and race. So this will be my first one. And this race to me is kind of like my Kona, because it's going to be the only time where I'll get to really race people of that caliber in the world. So kind of, I'm going to go out there and I'll just give it my absolute all on the day. And as I said, I'll get to the last half of that marathon. And if I'm in contention, I'll just push on. I'll switch the Garmin off and I'll go for it. And if I blow up, I'll blow up. Like, I'll take that risk. And some people might listen to this and think I'm absolutely stupid, but I just think, like, if you want to do that, you have to take risks. I think you have to take some element of a gamble somewhere, and you can't really play it safe.
John, it's such an amazing story. I could probably carry on talking to you for a good few hours, but
well, you only got to ask me one question.
I was going to ask, are you working with a coach at the moment?
Yeah, I am. So I'm working with a guy called by the name of Keith Sanders, and he runs Performance Fitness. He come second in his age group at Ironman UK, not last year before. And I met him there. I met him at Ironman UK, and then he ended up basically coaching me, and he's really took my training onto a whole new level, because, again, I was very inexperienced of racing for Ironman, and because of that, I made some fundamental mistakes in my training, and he come on board, and to be honest, like, he coached me for absolutely nothing. He gave me as much time as I wanted, and he's so knowledgeable on the sport and stuff, and he's really, like, helped me progress forward, and yeah, like, he's really given me a greater understanding of how to train for an Ironman and how to race it. You understand what I mean? Like, I'm still very inexperienced. Like, Ironman UK last year, I had the fitness to podium. I just underbiked. I didn't push the bike hard enough, and I got off, and I think I ran the 8th fastest marathon of the day, but I couldn't run it out. I just couldn't catch everyone up, because the amount of time I'd give them on the bike, I just underbiked, and I didn't really use my bike power on the day of the race, and my bike handling skills aren't that great. And anyone that was listening to this now that's gone cycling with me would testify to that. I am absolutely shocking at descending on a bike. And, like, any course that has a few twists and turns, you just drop me, you'll be gone up the road. Like, I'm really bad, but I'm trying to address those issues. And also Frankfurt, I've heard it's quite flat. So
I was going to ask if you're in your age group in Frankfurt.
Yeah, I'm giving all the tricks away now. Everyone probably know I can't go to Kona, so they think, well, we may as well just let him run off, because he can't go anyway.
Oh, John, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks, I appreciate it. As I said before, it's a real honour, and thank you very much.
And well, like I said, mate, there's a big pat on the back to you for that, because I loved that interview. The first few minutes, we kind of eased into it, and then from there, I was gripped by his story. It's just incredible, isn't it?
Isn't it amazing to think that, well, I don't know anyone who has, I don't know anyone who's been in prison.
Yeah.
It's just a complete different insights. And I just found it really, really interesting. And the fact that, you know, the prison guard who sort of believed in him and showed him the faith, and how he himself was so motivated after a while. Like, he admitted there, didn't he? When he was in at one point, his thought was, you know, I'm going straight back out. But actually then when he sort of found fitness and he worked at it and he found that he was really good at it, then it's like, actually, I can do something different with my life.
Yeah, it's that. I love the dual part of that story. There's the inspirational part of someone who's, you know, not had the easiest start in life and has changed his life around.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of it that for me played out, and I was kind of found myself in his shoes, and I was imagining like, oh man, imagine being locked up 23 hours a day in a room and you've got to do step-ups to get some exercise. I'm sure the listeners will relate to that, you know, not being able to exercise and having your freedom to move around taken away.
Yeah.
It would just, I don't think I could cope with it, Helen. I don't think I could manage.
No, it's so hard to just imagine it, isn't it? And like all through your, you know, you did something so bad that, you know, that is why you were in that situation. But to be essentially locked away, for most of your 20s, and then, it's just, I can't imagine it. I cannot imagine it.
Yeah.
He's actually got a book out now, Rob.
Has he really?
Yeah.
What's that called?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that, but I've just seen, and it's available on Amazon, so check it out, definitely. John McAvoy, if you Google something like John McAvoy Redemption or John McAvoy Triathlon Ironman, something like that, and it will come up, and I think it would be a really good book to have on your bookshelf.
I think you're right, yeah. I'm just, it hasn't come up. I thought I'd be able to pull it up in the background here, and it hasn't happened.
Oh, rubbish.
No, I really loved that story, and I really felt for him, and you think there's probably a lot of kids in his position where you make a terrible mistake early in your life, and you end up having to do, you know, to kind of make up for it, and then that's kind of all the life you know afterwards. But he sounds like he's made a real conscious effort, and just having a few people in his life that believed in him and told him that there's a different path he can go down.
Yep.
I just think it's great, and I'll really be rooting for him at Frankfurt and watching how he gets on. And big pat on the back to him. Thanks very much for doing that interview, Hels, because I think it was brilliant, and I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, no, it was really, really good to talk to him, and it's something a bit different, isn't it, as well, compared to just getting on. You know, we've had various inspiring people over the past few weeks, and that's another inspiring tale and a different side of things. So John, thank you very much for your time as well.
All right, and that leads us to this week's Coach's Couch. You've had a question in that says, I've just got my first power meter. I've done the 20-minute power test and worked out what my FTP is. I'm wondering if you've got any information about sort of what kind of improvements I can realistically be looking at making before my Ironman distance race, which is in October time. So it's a great question. It's one obviously that comes up a lot when people first get their first power meter. And a couple of things I'm going to say to this right from the off. Rather than just worrying about what the number is and how to increase the number straight from the off, I think the first thing you want to be doing with your power meter is just learning to ride with it. So go out, ride your normal rides, ride as you usually would, and just watch what the power numbers do. If you can put one of the data fields up on your Garmin that tells you what percentage of FTP you're riding at the moment, that'll be really informing for you, because it's sometimes difficult to do the maths in your head as you're going along. So just plug the number of your FTP into your Garmin and bring up the data field that just tells you what percentage of FTP you're riding at the moment. And the first thing you'll notice is when you're riding into a headwind, when you're going over any kind of hill, your power's going to jump massively. And most of us make this mistake of riding along, just pushing, quite a lot harder when we're into a headwind or going up a hill, but without really realizing it. It's almost like the human's default setting for riding into a headwind or up a hill is to push much harder than you would normally be doing. Now, if you ask that person how hard you feel you're riding right now, the answer will probably be, well, not that much harder than I was riding before, but the power numbers are going to tell you something very different. So just ride along and just watch what's going on your Garmin. Look at the power numbers and see what you can learn about the kind of rider that you are. You're also going to see similar stuff as you go around corners, as you go over humpback bridges, as you go with a tailwind or downhill. You'd be amazed how much the power just completely drops off, even if you feel you're trying to push on a downhill. And the lesson there is obviously, look, you're going to have to back off a bit on those downhills and accept the free speed. You're probably not going to be able to keep the power up on those downhills, okay? Now, to get back to your question, what kind of power increases can you be looking at? Well, I've pulled up the data here from, you'll remember the initial batch of athletes that came into Team Oxygen Addict came in February, and we had about an 8-week block initially where the guys were riding, let's think, what was the program at the time? They'd have been riding one FTP focus session a week, one cadence and position focus session a week, and one longer outdoor ride. So most of them were doing 3 rides a week. Only one of them could have been considered really FTP focused. And the numbers we got from the members there, we were looking on average at between a 4 and an 8% increase in FTP over an 8-week period. And that's in what I would class as not particularly being an FTP focused section. So with my guys, I'll have them train and really focus on lifting the functional threshold power during the winter months. So from October through to February, they're inside, they're doing 2 and sometimes 3 FTP focus sessions a week. We'll really see some big gains over that 16-week period there. And the idea is you go short and hard during the winter when the weather's awful. As you start to go longer towards your Ironman and your half Ironman distance races in the summertime, what you're going to find is that you're naturally tending to the kind of training that's most like the race you're going to do, and so that's the longer outdoor rides as your race increases. But we want to get you there as fit and as strong and putting out as much power as possible, so those long steady endurance rides are much faster than they would have been if you just spent the winter either doing no training or doing the occasional long ride at the weekends when you've got a chance. So the guys here got an improvement of between 4 and 8% in an 8-week block, and I think that's pretty reasonable. These guys were at the sort of 20 weeks out to 12 weeks out from their Ironman in their kind of time. So I guess what I'm saying is it's totally appropriate for you to look at putting, between 4 and 8% increase on your FTP before you get into the final 12 weeks of your Ironman or half Ironman training. So you are going to be considerably faster as you get into that time frame. Okay, and I hope that answers your question really. So we're at the point now where we're about 20 weeks away from the autumn time races, Ironman Weymouth, Wales, Mallorca, Barcelona and Kona. If you're interested in getting some help in preparing for your big race, then I'd encourage you to pop on over to our sponsors team.oxygenaddict.com, where we've got some information about how you can join up to the team. And the basic plan there is you'll get yourself a training plan specific to the event that you're taking part in and specific to your level of fitness and the amount of time you've got to train each week. You'll also get access to me through our private Facebook group, and most importantly, you'll get access to the other team members as well. We've been finding it's a real hidden benefit of the group that you get to chat and work with the other athletes that are in the team and following similar training plans to you, a lot of them racing the same training plans for you. Really supportive, great group of guys and girls in there. And if you're sort of not in a triathlon club especially, and you're feeling a bit lonely, and we all know it can get a little bit lonely if you're training for Ironman and half Ironman on your own, why not come over and check it out? We've got a special offer on Team Oxygen Addict memberships running all the way through May. Anybody who joins up in May is going to get a free 30-minute Skype or phone consultation to suit you, whichever one you prefer. That's a £50 value usually as a consultation with me. So if you're interested in that, you can pop over to team.oxygenaddict.com or just follow the click-through link from oxygenaddict.com. And if you sign up for a team membership during the month of May, you're going to get that free 30-minute consultation with me. So that's great. Thanks very much for sending your question in. Please keep them coming. You can either email them to coachrobwilby@oxygenaddict.com or you can send them over to Twitter. It's @cupoftri on Twitter.
All right, so we can wrap it up here. Thanks ever so much for your time. You've been listening to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And have a great training and racing week. Get out there, enjoy the outdoors, enjoy your freedom, and go and get some training done. Until next week, thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you all again soon. Cheers now.